Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing a quick process video showing you how I made this freestanding Christmas tree ornament using the English paper piecing technique. And as you can see in the background here, I've also made a mini wall hanging because this pattern comes with two different sizes of trees and two different sizes of the stars, as well as the bow applique piece that's there in the corner. I will leave the link to this pattern in the description, but it's print at home, so it's readily available no matter where you are. So I've opted for a traditional colour palette with my freestanding decoration because this can be hung up on the wall around Christmas time or even on your Christmas tree, but the wall hanging I wanted to use some cute colours. So here are the selection of fabric that I've used, and I'm just showing there that I do intend to try and do some fussy cutting for the star that goes on the top of the Christmas tree. So there's four like blades that are included for the Christmas tree itself. So I decided to alternate these colours because I don't have a lot that goes into the traditional colour scheme, so I thought I would just do two of each. But if I had more of a variety, I probably would have done each blade a different colour of green. And then I like to glue based using Alma's purple school glue. I just put a small line of that on the actual fabric rather than the paper, and I just fold it over using around 1/4 inch seam allowance. When I get to the top, I'm not too particular at making them into a very sharp point because all of the tops of the Christmas tree will be covered by the star, so that doesn't need to be too neat. It needs to go to somewhat of a point, but not a fine point, as you can see there in my footage. And I decided to join mine using a 40 weight polyester thread in a matching green, just to try and make some of the stitches a little bit less visible as well. And now when lining these up, again, because I said the top is not visible, I always start from this bottom point and work my way up using a whip stitch, not catching the card or anything, but just going through a small amount of the fabric. And then just go to the top roughly where you think the paper ends, but again, the top you don't need to be too precious about because it's all covered anyway. And then I'm adding the little base of the Christmas tree here in that part. Again, if I had some different Christmas colours, maybe a brownie colour, I thought that would go really nice, but I'm going through that stage where I want to use what's in my stash. And then when I get to the top, into that little point, I make sure I add a locking stitch just to keep that all nice and tight. So now moving on to the star itself. Again, just using my Alma's purple glue, and when I'm putting the template down, I'm lining it up to the top of this motif. It's actually a tiny Christmas tree, the motif is, but I thought it would make a really nice tessellating pattern for the star. Again, just cutting out with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and when you baste diamonds for stars, you always want to baste in the same direction. I like to go clockwise, I think, no, anti-clockwise, and there you can see the three coming together there. And then with the stars, I just join them one by one. I have experimented with the method of where you join 3 together and then you attach 2 groups of 3 together, but I find that the centre comes together a bit more cleaner if I just join them one by one as I'm going round, because I can make sure that it's all really lined up. I always tend to end up with a small hole if I do the 2 sets of 3, but do whatever works for you, have a little experiment. When I did the wall hanging, I did find that I was getting some small holes in the star, so I've actually put some buttons in the middle of the star that's on the Christmas tree, and that looks really nice, and that's a nice alternative if you end up with a small hole. Now what I'm doing here is I'm backing the star onto some felt. It's just acrylic felt rather than wool felt. Again, it's just what I had in my stash, and I'm just using an applique stitch, but I'm not actually going all the way through. I'm just going through probably 3/4 of the layer of the felt, just enough to make sure that the stitches are secure. And I'm doing that again in matching thread and cutting out all around, probably leaving around 1/4 inch, but just paying particular attention to points and inner corners. Now we're going to attach the hanging loop. So this star is going to be covered by another piece of felt, so you can really go to town here and make sure that that ribbon is nice and secure. So I just went through the front and the back several times, and then I did some stitches up the length of the ribbon itself, again just to make sure it was all nice and secure. I probably would have used green ribbon here. I think that would have looked really nice, but again just using what I've got in my stash rather than going out and getting any. And then all I'm going to do now is do a few tacking stitches to attach the star to the tree itself. So just going through all of the layers, so do be quite careful here because you'll be going through quite a few layers of fabric, but just do it where you can hide the thread as much as possible. And then what I'm going to do here now is back it onto the final backing piece of felt, just using a small few touches of glue just to temporarily keep it in place. I will add a few pins as well, but I find a combination of pins and glue to work best. Then all I'll do is I'll roughly cut around the whole shape. I'll cut out my final cut line once it's all stitched down, but I just thought I'll roughly cut around it just in case anything goes wrong, and then just make your final cuts once it's all stitched. And then all I'm going to do is do an applique stitch all the way around the edge. You might notice that I haven't actually taken the papers out. I did take the papers out of the main star, but of the main body of the Christmas tree, I wanted to give it a little bit of structure, so I've left the papers in there. It's probably not going to be something that I'll need to wash because it'll only be out for a short period of time each year and then just stored away. But it is completely up to you. If you have a stiffer felt, that might help keep things together. And then again, just cutting around it with a nice sharp pair of scissors, just with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then when you get to the star, you just want to make the back felt the same as the front felt. So just hold them together with your thumb and cut all around, moving the ribbon out of the way as you go around. Just be careful with the inner points, just to make sure that they're nice and clean as well. A nice sharp pair of small scissors will help you do this. And then to attach the 2 layers of the star felt together, I just used a blanket stitch. This isn't my strong point, so I do apologise about the footage a few times. I go out of frame. I definitely need to practice a few more times with a blanket stitch, but I use quite thin thread of a matching colour so that it's not too noticeable when you're at a distance, and that's the main thing. And then when I got to the ribbon, I didn't do any blanket stitch over the ribbon. I just did like a little running stitch in the middle, just to keep all the layers secure together and just to stop the ribbon from shifting or anything like that. So I really hope that you've enjoyed watching this video and that you're inspired to make some of your own hanging decorations. I also think that the star just by itself would make a really nice decoration. You could do a mixture of the two, some stars and some Christmas trees, and there is 2 different sizes included in the pattern as well. So do let me know over on Instagram if you make a version of these. I would love to see that. But thank you guys so much for watching. You take care and I will speak to you soon.